Joe Rogan has been a little hot water with his podcast, and he is $100 million man. They threw him a bag, but there were a couple several bags. Thank you for that, Terry. But a couple artists that weren't too happy with his comments as it related to COVID vaccines, and they pulled their catalogs from Spotify.
Well, it wasn't they were mad at what his comments necessarily. They were mad at who they brought on the show.
Was it the guest? It was the guest. It wasn't his thought. It wasn't necessarily his thought.
It was more so the fact that he gave a platform to specific
someone
people.
Like okay. Because I know Neil Young said it's a rap, and Joni Mitchell as well.
A whole bunch of people today came out too.
Oh, there's more people that pulled them. Do you have any?
I saw it on Facebook.
N.D.I.R.E.
Yeah.
Oh, word. Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple other people.
I mean, when you actually break it down, it makes sense for them to leave the platform because, one, they're making literally not even pennies. It takes so much for them to make money from Spotify. So it's a smack in the face to them that you have this podcast. You're paying him $100 million to be on this platform, and you're literally, this is your lifeblood, is your music, and everything is so flip-flop now that you need for your music to be streamed in order to make something.
Right.
And Spotify's not paying them that much anyway, so technically they're not really losing by pulling away from this platform. Honestly, that's my
I mean, you're very right. And plus, you talk about somebody like,
because we know the splits.
What was it, Neil Young?
Young, yeah.
Look, I'm not saying he's not standing in his convictions.
Yeah.
But he already got a $150 million bag for selling the rights to his music.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to take these principled stands when you've already got $150 million or whatever the split is in your bank account for selling the rights to music. I'm not casting aspersions on his actual principled stand, but I'm just saying he can do that. It's going to, like, Joni Mitchell, shout out to her. N.D.I.R.E., shout out to her. Now, if Drake or Taylor Swift or Doja Cat or one of the or Adele say, we not rocking with this, now you're talking about a dynamic that's going to have to change. But you got to understand, Joe Rogan already signed that $100 million. He already got the $100 million. There's only so much Spotify. They're already all in on this cat as far as the exclusive content.
100%.
So there's only so much. There's only so much they can do.
Lone, didn't you say Rogan had a rebuttal? I haven't seen it. You said he.
Yeah, I watched his. I mean, Joe Rogan's an interesting character because there was a time when he's always been like a comedian. He's never been like a huge comedian, but he's always been decent. You know what I mean?
He was the Fear Factor guy.
Yeah. That was that too.
And before that, the radio show on NBC with 𝐀𝐁𝐎𝐿 and
I don't know about that. Yeah.
Andy Dick and Phil Hartman.
He's always just been around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
News Radio. That was the name of the show.
We've always kind of known him.
Was he on that show?
He was on that show.
See, I don't even remember him from that show.
But and I'm not a Rogan head by any means. I've seen some of his stuff. Some of his interviews are good. Sometimes he says some stuff I'm just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like he has some weird. Yeah, I get into that else some other time. But for this particular thing, his rebuttal was essentially just kind of acknowledging it. Really, I mean, I wasn't even mad at it. Like he just said, he was like, I understand why people might be upset. He said, my thing is I invite people on and we have conversations. He's like, I don't have any agenda. He's like, I book everybody myself still. And he's like, maybe I should do a little bit better job of having the other opinions on as well, shortly afterwards. And he's like, Spotify is going to put a disclaimer at the beginning of the episodes if anything's potentially controversial and stuff like that. He's like, but yeah, so I don't know, like
took some accountability.
I think he took a decent amount of accountability,
as much as he can possibly take at this point.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I've seen people also come out and say stuff like, "Oh yeah, what about podcast?" I'm sitting here. Obviously, we do a podcast, so I'm like, they're like, yeah, they should vet everything, and all these things need to happen before the show is shot. I'm just like,
slow down.
I was like,
please slow down.
And I'm just like, look, like at some point in time, we do have to acknowledge that yes, you have to be careful with how you say stuff, right? And the things you say, because you have a responsibility there. But there's really only so much you can do with with this. Like, are you really going to take Joe Rogan off the air because he interviewed somebody that had an opinion? You know what I mean? Like,
you can't really do that.
You can't do that. Yeah,
so
you can't do that.
I don't know. Like, I get it. You know, and he does have a huge cult following, and they seem to eat it up. You know, everybody thinks that. I mean, the whole take the worm stuff was from him. You know, because he interviewed somebody and then he subscribed to it. So, you know, it can be dangerous, but at the same time, like, I feel like he's reasonably responsible. You know, he's not.
You don't. It's not like someone's making people watch his take on COVID or whatever
or
the
his
hot
guest.
topic is,
Yeah,
or his guest.
Yeah,
you don't have to watch it.
But that's not the argument, though.
I know. I know, but I'm just saying for example, like Oprah, Donahue, Geraldo, they all had people on their shows that weren't necessarily someone that you would G for or like their opinion, but they were still on the show because that's what drove the numbers and the viewership.
That's a good point.
So I mean, now we're in a new day and age where a podcast, Joe Rogan is arguably the biggest. Yeah, the biggest podcast out there.
He's got to be number one.
Close.
He's going to have some topics that are going to push buttons for viewership. I mean, that's just part of the game. I understand that totally. I wouldn't think that he would do anything else, and I'm not mad at Spotify either for not dropping him or
they got too much investment.
Pulling shows.
I don't blame it. Like I said,
I don't even blame Neil Young.
No, I don't blame them either.
Yeah, yes. But you know what is, like I said, this isn't Joe Rogan saying this is my. Now he has said some goofy stuff in the past.
Yes.
Okay, but if he says, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with somebody, just because you don't like who he's having a conversation, you know, you hit it right on the head. That's like on Oprah or Donahue, like they would bring these Klan members on and have the conversation. Or let's just play the other side. You know, when Donahue would bring on Mr. Farrakhan and have conversations with him.
When they had Luke.
You know, exactly. There's always going to be somebody on there be like, well, I don't agree with this, you know, or I think this is misinformation, or however it is that you want to put it in the context of then and now. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we can't. People having conversations, that's where we got to watch it. I don't want to say watch it. Maybe that's a bit too much, because then someone could say, "Oh, well, you guys talked about this when we were sitting down talking, and we don't have anywhere near the clout of Joe Rogan." Yeah. But if someone said, "No, we're not going to do this because the new old heads said this about so and so and so and so," yeah, I was going to keep her name out of it.
There you go, Lone. There you go.
Know, but it is what it is, and
it wasn't even one of the most controversial.
But having. Like I said, having conversations, because he's had Elon Musk, like you know, honestly,
Peterson.
I haven't checked for him really, because it used to be I'd be able to see the clips on YouTube. Yeah, you know, and I always liked when he sat down and talked with comedians. You know, I remember. You know, he talked to John Witherspoon. That was one of my favorite.
I watched the entire episode.
When he sat down and talked to Charlemagne and Andrew Schultz, or when he sat down and talked to Dave Chappelle. Those, you know, when he's sitting down and talking to Ben Shapiro, I don't care what Ben Shapiro has to say, so I'm not going to watch that episode.
Yeah,
you say Lone is
it's comedy because Ben is goofy.
Yeah, well, that too. But you know, people having conversations that you may not like.
Yeah.
That's a slippery slope.
It is, and it's part of the I hate to say it, that people are so sensitive about literally everything nowadays. Like, you can't police conversation, and sometimes those conversations are going to get things on the table that need to be on the table and need to be discussed.
Yep. Or to be refuted. Maybe, you know, if next week he has someone on and says, well, this is why this, that, and the third is not right. I'm a doctor. I've done the research. Then it's like there's going to be somebody who on the other side who's like, well, why would you have that doctor on after this with all that research? Mm-hmm. Where's that research coming from?
Here's the crazy thing, even about the COVID stuff. He brought on the two people that people are upset about are doctors, and they're like high in their field.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that they predicted some of it was actually accurate, you know, like the cloth masks not really
doing anything,
and certain things. So, I mean, it's not like everything that they talked about was 100%.
A lot of people who are outraged haven't even watched the show to know what they're talking about.
They're not going to watch it anyway.
That's just like people didn't watch the whole Nicki Minaj clip.
Yeah, they clearly didn't watch the whole.
You know, they just they found the part that would make them angry.
For my standpoint, I like some of Joe's stuff, other stuff I don't care about. Mm-hmm. But I will say that I can at least appreciate for me personally, I can appreciate him actually addressing this and being like, I hear where you guys feel like I should do better, and I'll kind of try to address this. I can appreciate.
Look, because he already got his $100 million. It could be like F all of y'all.
He could have.
I'll give
very
him
much
for what both of y'all just said. I give him peace for that, for the accountability, because he got his bread, so he don't necessarily have to.
Yeah, I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, he could act a fool if he want, but
he could have doubled down on all this.
He could have, yeah. So I give him peace for that. I definitely give him peace for that.
And you know what? As much as it's be like, okay, Neil Young, NDRE, Joni Mitchell. Look, when the new This, That, and the Third drops on Friday, where you gonna be?
Spotify. Yeah.
I'm not really a big Spotify fan. I don't use Spotify very much.
No, I'm a title guy, but the only reason I have Spotify is to listen. The only reason I got Spotify was when I didn't like listening to our podcast on what was it, SoundCloud?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hated listening to our podcast, so I got Spotify. That's the only reason I have it.